Coming up on this Tuesday edition of Daybreak, the National Assembly's inspection of government agencies kicks off today. Lawmakers are expected to focus on the government's response to the Sewol-ho ferry sinking and plans to raise cigarette prices. Korea's Supreme Prosecutor's Office says illegal modifications, serious overloading and the crew members' poor steering were the main causes of April's ferry disaster that left over 300 people dead or missing. Plus, the Nobel Prize in Medicine is awarded to 3 scientists who discovered the inner GPS that helps the brain navigate through the world. Daybreak begins now. Hello and thanks for joining us. To our viewers around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Tuesday, October 7th here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom and you're tuned in to Daybreak. Our top story this morning, the National Assembly begins its annual parliamentary hearings on this Tuesday. Over the next 3 weeks or so, standing committees will call in officials from close to 700 government offices to question them on their spending and the implementation of their policies. The ruling party wants to veer away from political bickering, but that looks to be wishful thinking, as the main opposition has vowed to make the highly contentious Sewol-ho ferry disaster their top priority during these inspections. Lawmakers will also question officials over plans to raise taxes on cigarettes. Last month, the government proposed a tax hike that would nearly double cigarette prices. Some lawmakers believe the proposed tax hike is a way to empty the pockets of working-class people and smokers. Korea's Supreme Prosecutor's Office has announced some findings from its own probe into April's Sewol-ho ferry sinking that killed more than 300 people, including a great many high school students. Our Ji Myung-gil has more on the web of corruption and incompetence revealed by this investigation.
After a months-long investigation into April's Sewol ferry disaster, the prosecution said 154 people, including the captain, crew, government and shipping officials, have so far been indicted on various charges related to the accident. The state's prosecutor has concluded the main causes of the accident were illegal modifications and overloading of the vessel, while the Korea Coast Guard's poor initial response led to a higher death toll.
Patrol Boat 123 was instructed to guide the Sewol ferry passengers to safely abandon the ship, but failed to take even their basic duties.
Obstruction charges followed as members of the Coast Guard were found to have tampered with a logbook to make it look as though they had instructed passengers to abandon ship and that its rescuers entered the sinking ferry when in fact they had not. Inefficient communication between the ferry's crew and Jindo Island's Vessel Traffic Service Center also played a role in failed rescue efforts. 12 traffic controllers also neglected their duties and failed to follow proper procedures in responding to distress calls. Poor steering by the helmsman also contributed to the maritime disaster. However, the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy criticized the probe results, saying the findings failed to assess the presidential office and the government's poor initial response. The opposition party emphasized the need to quickly enact the Sewol ferry bill and authorize the independent fact-finding committee to investigate and fully uncover the truth behind April's ferry sinking. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
Now, President Park Geun-hye is calling for high-level inter-Korean talks to be held on a regular basis. Her remarks came after the two Koreas agreed last weekend to hold a meeting in the next few weeks. But what are the chances for additional ongoing dialogue? Our Hwang Sang-hee reports on the prospects.
As the two Koreas prepare for a fresh round of high-level talks, President Park Geun-hye on Monday called on the need for a regular inter-Korean dialogue.
특히 이번 고위급 접촉이 단발성 대화에 그치지 않고 남북 대화의 정례화를 이루어 평화 통일의 길을 닦을 수 있도록 노력해야 할 것입니다.
Sending a high-level delegation to Seoul on Saturday, Pyongyang said it was ready to hold a second round of high-level talks with Seoul sometime later this month or in early November. South Korea said reuniting families separated by the Korean War will be on top of the agenda.
The issue of separated families certainly needs to be brought to the table by us. We are hoping to discuss a wide range of issues that are of interest to South and North Korea.
The surprise one-day visit has raised hopes of a new dynamic in inter-Korean ties. In Seoul for talks with senior officials and Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se, U.S. Assistant Secretary of State Daniel Russell extended Washington's support on the latest developments.
I made clear that, as is a consistent element of U.S. policy, the U.S. supports the efforts on the part of the ROK to promote and enhance inter-Korean relations.
But President Park noted that inter-Korean ties have sometimes worsened following dialogue, implying it may be too early to judge North Korea's intentions. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Now, Japan's foreign minister says he will consider ordering the removal of a comment on one of his ministry's websites that says the wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women was a clear violation of human rights and dignity. Speaking in Parliament on Monday, Fumio Kishida said that his ministry will soon decide whether to delete it or add extra commentary to it. The comment is shown on a website for the Asian Women's Fund, which is run by the Japanese Foreign Ministry. The fund received private donations for the victims from 1995 to 2007. The minister was responding to a question by an opposition lawmaker who said he didn't believe his country forced women to serve at military brothels during World War II. Now, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Racism is calling on the South Korean government to do more to address what he called serious racism in the nation. Speaking in Seoul on Monday, Mutuma Rutiera said there was no point comparing South Korea with other countries in terms of racism, but said there were deeply ingrained cases of racism here. However, he did stress that South Korea has made a lot of progress considering its long history of racial and cultural homogeneity. Rutiera spent 8 days inspecting racial discrimination and xenophobia in South Korea. He's going to submit his report on the inspection results to the UN Human Rights Council next year. This year's Nobel Prize in Medicine has been awarded to 3 scientists who discovered how our brains help us navigate through our surroundings. The award is shared by British-American neuroscientist John O'Keefe of University College London and Norwegians May-Britt Moser of the Centre for Neural Computation in Trondheim and Edvard Moser of the Kavli Institute for Systems Neuroscience in the same city. Now, this ceremony was held on Monday in Stockholm, and it awarded them with the $1.2 million in prize money. The Nobel Committee said they had worked out how our brains know where we are in space, how we store that information, and how we can find our way from one place to another. The Nobel Prize in Physics will be announced later on this Tuesday.
We start before the sun rises to bring you the latest stories out of Korea. We also lead the way with important global coverage. Stay on the pulse of what is happening with Daybreak.
Now in some economic news, Korea's conglomerates have promised the Commerce Ministry that they will move ahead with investment plans worth billions of dollars through next year. The government has welcomed the move and says it would do all it can to foster, hopefully, a much more business-friendly environment here in Korea. Our Kim Ji-yeon has the details.
Cooperation between the Korean government and the country's conglomerates seemed to go hand in hand during hard economic times. In a gathering hosted by the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy, tech giant Samsung Electronics and 15 other companies agreed to make investments worth around $26.6 billion in total. This includes new investment projects slated for next year, but not the expenses for annual maintenance and development projects. Among the investment plans are Samsung's semiconductor plant line at the Pyeongtaek Industrial Complex in Gyeonggi-do Province, worth $14.6 billion. Samsung officials emphasize the importance of fostering a business-friendly environment for quick completion of the plant, which is currently slated for 2017. In response, Trade Minister Yoon Sang-jik says the government will facilitate a one-on-one consultation system to remove obstacles and help companies carry out their investment plans on schedule. In regard to the unfavorable currency conditions surrounding Japan's weakening yen, which is threatening Korean exporters, the minister says domestic companies should turn the situation into an opportunity to boost their facilities' investments. He adds that businesses should take full advantage of the currency exchange rates to increase investments, especially when it comes to machinery and plant assets from Japan, since the weakening yen makes it relatively cheaper to import Japanese products. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Now, Korea will become the 7th member of the so-called 30-50 Club next year. Now, this exclusive club is made up of countries with populations of over 50 million, with a gross national income of $30,000 per person. The Hyundai Research Institute says Korea's GNI per person is forecast to reach nearly $29,000 this year. It's then expected to increase over 4% to more than $30,000 by next year. Experts say joining this high-income club implies Korea's macroeconomic environment is stable. The countries who meet both those requirements include countries like the United States, Britain and Germany. And while we're speaking of South Korea's fiscal health, the government will have to cough up a hefty interest payment on its debts. At the end of the year, the nation has set aside $19.5 billion to cover this cost, which is up around $2 billion from last year. Taking into account South Korea's population of 50.4 million people, the per capita interest burden per person is approximately $400 this year. Government debt has been rising steadily over recent years and is expected to top $465 billion this year. Now, as the market becomes ever more cutthroat, with stores seemingly opening on every corner in Korea these days, convenience stores are turning to rather novel ways to attract and, more importantly, keep customers, offering high-tech devices and unconventional services on top of their usual fare of drinks and snacks. Our Kim Min-ji reports.
Convenience stores in Korea are pushing to become more convenient than ever, evolving into so-called living stores that cater to the everyday needs of consumers. The number of convenience stores has more than doubled from just 4 years ago. This translates into roughly one convenience store per 2,000 people, and it's growing to become a $12 billion industry. But with quantitative growth at its peak, convenience stores are now seeking new sources of profit by offering a new range of products and customizing stores to meet the individual needs of customers.
7-Eleven offers diverse products depending on store locations. In this store, we sell flowers and have imported a French underwear brand. We're also planning to offer more products that meet the needs of single-person households.
Non-food products now make up about 17% of 7-Eleven sales, and the plan is to boost that figure to 20% next year. GS25, another popular convenience store, is offering a lineup of tech goods from cell phones and televisions to water purifiers. And some take it to another level by offering space to enjoy a cup of coffee or hold meetings.
I didn't know these rooms existed. I hope to use one in the future with my friends when I do team assignments.
Customers can reserve these rooms at just $1 per hour, along with free Wi-Fi access, printing facilities, and laptop rentals.
We created this space with the purpose of attracting more customers by offering convenience. People visit our store not just to buy food, but to spend time.
By shifting focus from their traditional money makers like instant foods towards new goods and services, convenience stores are striving to be more than just a quick stop shop. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Right, well, now it's time today to take a check through the global headlines we're following on this Tuesday morning here in Korea. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim, who is standing by, as always, for us at the News Center. Very good morning to you, Eunice.
And good morning to you, Mark. It appears formal talks between Hong Kong's government and student leaders of the city's pro-democracy movement will happen as both sides reached an agreement on 3 key principles late Monday. Representatives said there will be several rounds of negotiations held on equal footing, the results of which the government will confirm and implement. Both sides said they hope the talks will begin by the end of the week. This as most of the demonstrators who had jammed the territory's major streets returned to school and work on Monday. Government offices were also reopened. Come evening, the few hundred grew to more than 1,000 protesters in 3 key locations, though still much smaller than those of rallies before. The day came and went without incident, despite a warning by Hong Kong's leader that police force could be used to get the city back in order. The demonstrators have been demanding universal suffrage in Hong Kong's 2017 election to select its chief executive, as well as the resignation of its current embattled leader, C.Y. Leung. Spain has observed the first known Ebola infection contracted outside of Africa. In this current outbreak, the Spanish Health Ministry confirmed that the nursing assistant had been part of a team to treat a Spanish priest who had contracted the hemorrhagic virus while in Sierra Leone. Unlike the priest who succumbed to the disease on September 25th, the nurse was in stable condition after testing positive for the virus. She was admitted to a hospital near Madrid Monday morning with a high fever, according to Spain's health minister. More than 3,400 people are confirmed to have died in this outbreak, according to figures by the World Health Organization. The U.S. Supreme Court has allowed the expansion of same-sex marriage in America by not ruling on appeals by 5 states seeking to uphold their bans. The justices let stand lower court rulings that had struck down gay marriage bans in Wisconsin, Indiana, Oklahoma, Utah, and Virginia. While the justices did not offer an explanation for their inaction, it is being viewed as a statement that the Supreme Court does not think it's wrong to allow same-sex couples to marry. The move would clear the way for gay marriage to be legal in 30 of the country's 50 states, which is up from 19, plus the District of Columbia. Challenges are pending in the remaining 20 states. And Typhoon Panphone has headed to the Pacific Ocean, but not before slamming parts of Japan and killing at least 1 person. 3 U.S. airmen were washed out to sea in Okinawa, and at least 1 was confirmed killed. The others remain missing. More than 2 million people were advised to evacuate after the powerful storm made landfall on Monday morning in central Japan, with wind speeds of 180 kilometers per hour. Thousands of households lost power for a time as 600 flights were canceled at Tokyo's Haneda Airport. Bullet trains were halted between Tokyo and Osaka due to the heavy rainfall. They were resumed later in the day, though. The typhoon also forced the suspension of search efforts in Mount Ontake on fears of mudslides.
And a good Tuesday morning to you all as we kick things off with a rather disappointing news. Now, with South Korea hosting the 61st World Military Pentathlon Championship on Wednesday, North Korea will not be participating according to the organizers. Now, North Korea, who initially stated that they will send a 15-member delegation, including 10 athletes, will withdraw from the event due to injuries to some of their athletes. Now, organizers stated that the pentathlon is a team event and injuries suffered by even one athlete could affect the whole result. The event, which will take part in southeastern city of Yeongcheon, will host 328 soldiers from 35 nations who will compete in rifle shooting, obstacle run, 50-meter obstacle swimming, throwing, and cross-country for 9 days. And moving on to the South Korean national football team this time, as the team will open camp today in preparations for the upcoming friendly matches at home. And the training camp will also mark Uli Stilicke's debut as the manager for the South Korean national team, as he's set to work with a full squad for the first time since being hired last month. The national team, who's currently ranked 63rd in the FIFA rankings, hope to bounce back as manager Stilicke looks forward to utilizing the many options, including 3 Asian Games gold medalists in Kim Seung-dae, Kim Seung-gyu, and Park Ju-ho. Meanwhile, the team is set to face off against Paraguay on Friday. And shifting over to domestic basketball, where the 2014-2015 KBL Media Day kicked off the new season of basketball here in the nation. And with the representative players and coaches from the 10 KBL teams coming together on Monday afternoon, no one was sure who the clear favorite is this season. But with Ulsan Mobis Phoebus winning back-to-back championships, manager Yoo Jae-hak hopes to make it a three-peat this season. Meanwhile, coaches were against the idea of having both foreign players play at the same time when asked about a possible rule change allowing it to happen. And of course, the season officially tips off on Saturday with 4 games followed by 5 games on Sunday. And as the 2014 KBO season is quickly approaching its postseason, the SK Wyverns continue to chase the 4th place spot with the 11-1 victory over the Hanwha Eagles, with the Doosan Bears beating the Samsung Lions 5-1 thanks to a 4-run 11th inning. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the NC Dinos take on the LG Twins. Of course, going into the game here, the LG Twins trying to hold on to their 4th place spot, while the NC Dinos have already clinched their playoff berth. But LG Twins' Shin Jung-lak throwing a masterpiece, throwing a no-hitter until he's taken out after 7 1/3 innings. Now fast forward to the top of the 9th inning, game tied 0-0. NC's Park Min-ho with 2 men out. Taps one in front of the catcher, Park Young-soo injured on the play, but that's ruled an error. And the no-hitter's alive. Bottom 9th inning here, man on first and second, the captain Lee Jin-young, the game winner. And that means a combined no-hitter, as 3 LG pitchers combined for a no-hitter for the first time in history, leading to a 1-0 LG victory. And staying with baseball, but over to the 2014 MLB playoffs, where 2 unlikely teams will face off against each other in the American League Championship Series. With the Baltimore Orioles sweeping the Detroit Tigers in 3 games and the Kansas City Royals also sweeping the LA Angels in 3 games, the 2 unlikely teams in the American League will square off in the Championship Series. Now, for the Royals, it's their first trip to the ALCS since 1985, while the Orioles make their first trip since 1997. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. We're waking up to a chillier morning than yesterday. And speaking of which, mountainous regions in Gangwon-do province could see first frost of the season, with lows dipping to below freezing mark. Also, low in Seoul is just above 10 degrees Celsius. So be sure to dress warmer before heading out to work or school today. But skies will remain clear. Mostly sunny skies are expected throughout the day across much of the country, and daily highs are expected to be similar to yesterday. So let's take a closer look at the readings for today. Now, the low in Seoul kicked off at 11, and then the high will rise to 22, while Daegu and Gwangju will peak at 23 and 24, and Busan will rise to 23 this afternoon under lots of sunshine. Now, for other regions, it looks like Jeju Island and Daejeon will see highs of 22 and 23, and Dokdo peaks at 19, while Mount Keungang will reach 12 this afternoon. So it's going to be a cool day today, so don't forget to dress in layers to keep yourself warm. Now that's all for Korea, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, those are the stories we have for you at this hour. Korea Today is coming up in about half an hour's time at 7 a.m. Korea time. We'll be back throughout the day with many more news updates, and I'll be back myself at 10 a.m. Korea time. Until then, goodbye.